Hey guys, Al here, Vitalized Seed. Excuse me, I'm fighting a little cold. That's what happens when you have a little one at home. So, want to do a video today on manure and manure analysis and why I think it's important. This was a very good customer of ours and a friend. I asked if he cared if I highlighted a few things on these reports that he took last year, and he said absolutely not. Go ahead for it. Go ahead and use it. So I'm going to touch on a few things. Obviously, there's a lot in these diagrams, but the biggest takeaway from this video is not all manure is created equal, and it's well worth getting a manure analysis done. The top one is horse manure. The bottom one is chicken manure. Most people know that chicken manure is higher in nitrogen. Obviously, organic nitrogen and ammonium. About 80 to 90% of your ammonium is going to be ready to go in that first year. You can also have high levels of nitrate in manure. So it's again why it's worth understanding what you're putting down and when, because that ammonium and nitrate, depending on weather and CEC of the soil and temperature of the soil and everything, microbial activity, it's going to be available pretty quick. So you go and put it down in the winter. If you don't work it in, you're just putting it on top, etc. You're going to be at a higher risk to volatilization and or runoff. So I think most people who are using manure don't want that to happen. Not that anybody wants it to happen, but certainly they think, oh, I'm using this all organic source. We want to realize that there's both organic and inorganic N in naturally occurring, and organic N is going to convert to inorganic N. And as you see in the chicken manure analysis, within the first year, give or take, depending again, rainfall, heat units, microbial activity, etc., you're going to have about 17 pounds of that 50 pounds per ton converted in that first year, on top of your ammonium, on top of the organic matter that's getting mineralized in your soil, on top of the nitrate that's already in your soil, plus any crop residue. So keep that in mind, guys. It doesn't take that long to get pretty high N, especially if you're growing, a garden or cover crops, like what we do at Vitalized Seed. Our summer cover crop is heavy in legumes. Nitro boost is it called. So you don't need a whole bunch of N. So that's going to make a difference as to when or if I'm applying manure, if I have that source. The other thing to keep in mind is your pH. So the pH of the horse manure is 7.9. The pH of the chicken manure is, I believe it was 6.2. It's at the bottom of the sheet here. A couple other things to mention is you can't fine tune these fertilizer applications with manure like you could maybe with a synthetic fertilizer. So, or at least get a lot closer. So when you're applying chicken manure, if it's 1 ton here or there, I really don't think you're going to harm much. But again, it's good to test it. It's good to understand your soil, continue to test your soil, see what all those levels are. But I've heard of people doing tons and tons and tons of it on an acre in order to try to drive organic matter. That's good in a sense, but we have to be cognizant of what else we're putting on there. So for every ton of this particular chicken manure, we were putting down about 50 pounds of phosphorus. So to put that into perspective, a general rule of thumb, you'd need about 75 pounds of phosphorus to grow 200 bushel per acre corn. Corn is a very nutrient demanding crop, so keep that in mind. Another thing is phosphorus is really immobile. So if you're just throwing it on top there and it's on a slope or something like that, and you actually have runoff, yeah, phosphorus isn't going to leach out like nitrate would, but if it's running off of the soil, even in no-till practices, if it's just sitting on top and that's occurring, you can still have erosion occurring and have issues with phosphorus getting into the water. So the biggest takeaway here, though, guys, is if you look at the horse manure really is not adding it's not adding very many nutrients. You also want to remember the Mulder's diagram, that as certain nutrients get higher than needed, you can tie up other nutrients. A common one talked about ag PhD is your phosphorus to zinc ratio in order to make sure certain uptake is done. Phosphorus, depending on the CEC and pH of the soil, can be known to tie up with things like calcium, magnesium, and it can also be known to tie up things like aluminum and iron, again, depending on that pH. So it's really important to test these things and come up with a plan as to when you want to apply it and try to keep that relative to the next crop that you're going to grow. So that way, one, you're maximizing, your big nutrients, your NPK that you want to try to get out of that next crop, but you're also not tying up micros or other even secondary nutrients because you're putting down too much NPK because you thought, hey, a free thing is a good thing. So if a little is good, a lot's better. That's very rarely the case, especially as in soil. So hopefully this was helpful, guys. This is just a quick example. Obviously, we work with Ward Labs. You could reach out to their team for more in-depth questions and analysis. You can also check us out at vitalizeseed.com and shoot me an email anytime, albert@vitalizeseed.com. Get outside, enjoy the outdoors, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope everyone has a safe and wonderful Happy New Year.